Okay, good evening. I'm going to gavel us into this Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Agenda shows an additional teleconference location, but we are lucky to have Trustee Hazen in person with us, so we'll not need to read through any sort of teleconferencing script, and we can take votes as a group instead of by roll call. So good things. Okay. That's our call to order. Good evening. As we begin this meeting, it is important to pay respect to and acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esselen people, and additionally pay respect to elders, both past and present. Roll call, please, Dr. Am.
Absolutely. Well, President McNary.
Here.
Clerk Shamas.
Here.
Dr. Hazen.
Here.
Trustee Otmar and Trustee Wax.
Here.
Okay, thank you. With all 5 trustees present in person, we have a quorum. Item D on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and I will first look to you, Dr. Adamson. Are there any changes or walk-on items?
There are no changes, no walk-ons.
Okay, thank you. We'll go out to public comment next, as we always do. Okay, no one for public comment on that item. Board, any discussion on the adoption of the agenda as presented? And seeing nobody reach for their microphones, I'll ask for a motion.
Move that we adopt the agenda as presented. I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Trustee Shamas and seconded by Trustee Hazen. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we will identify closed session topics on this evening's agenda. Item A is negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with the PGTA for 2025-2026. Item B is negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with the CSEA for 2025-2026. Item C is public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave complaint under Government Code Section 54957, Subdivision B. And item D is a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, OAH case number 202-602-0180 under Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. Those are our closed session topics. Are there any public comments on closed session? Okay, no public comments on closed session. With that, we will adjourn to closed session and reconvene at 6:30. Thank you. Okay, it is 6:30 and we are reconvening in open session. This is a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education, and welcome to those of you who are joining for this portion of our meeting. The first thing we do when we reconvene is take action on report action taken in closed session. So with regard to item A on the agenda, negotiations, collective bargaining, planning and preparation with the PGTA for 2025-26, information was received. With regard to item B, negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and preparation with the CSEA for 2025-2026, information was received. With regard to item C, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, leave complaint, Government Code Section 54957, Subdivision B. In closed session, the board took action pursuant to Education Code Section 44954 to notify 4 temporary certificated employees of the district's decision to release the employees at the conclusion of the current school year. The board further authorized a district to provide notices of non-reelection pursuant to Section 44929.21 on a precautionary basis to any of those temporary teachers if it is deemed necessary. A vote was taken and the vote was unanimous. With regard to item D, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation regarding OAH case number 202-602-0180 under Government Code Section 54956.9 subdivision D1, information was received by the board. Trustee Hazen, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? Thank you. I had a similar and just, yeah, I'll make a note. Thank you. The next part of our agenda is our presentation, and I will turn it over to you, Dr. Adamson, to introduce the Pacific Grove High School Model United Nations Club.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to announce our students, but more importantly, Principal O'Meara, who's going to introduce them. And thank you so much for being here this evening to start our meeting out. We'll turn it over to you.
All right. Good evening, PGUSD trustees, our student trustee, Superintendent Adamson, Mr. Jorn, Assistant Superintendent, Mr. Jorn, excuse me. I'm very pleased and proud to be here tonight as we highlight the PGHS Model United Nations Club, a sanctioned ASB club that gives students the opportunity to explore global issues through diplomacy, research, and structured debate that simulates the work of the United Nations. Tonight, we are fortunate to have members of the club here to share more about their work. And at this time, I would like to introduce the officers of the PGHS Model United Nations Club, along with their faculty moderator. First of all, our faculty moderator, Miss Ashley Nicholson. Our co-presidents, Sergen Sertunch and Jonah De Leon, and our Vice President, Kabir Sharma. And at this time, I will hand it over to them. Thank you.
First, on behalf of PG MUN Club, just thank you for having us tonight. We're excited to share a little bit about Model UN.
First slide. Okay, so first of all, just a little overview on what Model UN is. So it is a demonstration of the United Nations. It has multiple different committees, usually in one conference. So there'll be like one committee focusing on like agriculture, and then maybe like another committee focusing on like business. And the goal of a Model UN conference is to get like a common resolution passed. So you're gonna research about your country and like figure out what other countries share similar goals and get something that you believe can be passed, and everyone will take a vote at the end. So delegates can come up to present the arguments during like a debate time, which is called a moderated caucus. So during moderated caucus, that's really like the structured debate time. You can talk about the presented topic, and then in the unmoderated caucus, that's where you really get to like talk with people, write the resolutions, and start to find like what countries have common interests. So this is very centered on speech and debate. We don't have a speech and debate club at Pacific Grove right now. So this is like probably our closest thing. And these topics can range from really serious discussions like nuclear war or business economics, to redesigning the McDonald's menu was a topic I had one time. But yeah, so that's just a little overview. Model UN.
So this is why it matters. So it prepares us for college level classes. At PGHS, we do offer dual enrollment classes, but we don't really get to do research if you don't take those classes. So this really forces you to research about your country, and not all the time, or you don't have like the same country every time. So this forces you to learn about different views that many countries might have. The skills that we develop are public speaking, because you have to go up on the stage like I'm doing right now and speak about your country. Critical thinking, because you do have to process and like learn the views of your country, and it's a lot of research and writing. researching on your resolution, researching for your research paper, and yeah, and then negotiating. You do have to collaborate with other countries and figure out what's best for all parties involved.
Yeah, just a quick overview of what our club has participated in and done this year. We've done 4 conferences this school year. One was up in Alameda with Island MUN, and then one was at your UC Berkeley. The next was in Santa Clara, and finally we went up to San Francisco back in February. And I think one thing that's just really important to share is that most of our kind of participants and delegates, after their first conference, usually have a pretty positive experience and they want to do it again, which is just being able to kind of retain like people to participate and kind of giving them a platform that they can kind of stand out and feel special. Is just kind of something that I'm really proud of our club. And yeah.
Okay, and what the future holds for us. So our next conference is going to be down in SoCal at UC Irvine. We're going to take a little group down there. We're looking at some next year, finding some international or maybe across the country tournaments that we can go and participate in. And then we've considered like a summer camp too, Model UN based summer camp within the community, and also maybe some new fundraisers. So we hope to see you guys soon again for these topics. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you for listening.
Ask you to stay up here for a second, right, while we just talk about you. So I would just like to, on behalf of our board, to just thank you, first of all, for all being here this evening. As I was listening to you, I think just some things stood out to me. You talked a lot about, what you've learned, through this process and some of the key traits you have to put into place and what you're implementing. So research, collaboration, thoughtful debate. I heard consensus building, conflict resolution, right? And what a fine example you are all serving for us as an entire district on, really, I'm looking at you're looking at peaceful resolutions, and that is such an important component for us right now as a society and as a nation. So thank you for serving as that incredible model. The certificates I'm going to be presenting to you this evening are our Culture of We certificates that really are given out for students who are showing the many ways that you are putting into action our 3 core values of safety, belonging, and prosperity. And everything I've heard from what you're doing tonight, even with your future conference and meeting other students across the state, you are absolutely showing us what those 3 core values are about as we're building our culture of we. So it's my pleasure to be presenting these certificates to the 3 of you this evening. Kabir Sharma. Yep. Jonah De Leon. Surgeon Sertunch. And then someone who has not been mentioned yet, but the teacher who is helping facilitate this and work with these fine young students, is Ashley Nickerson. Thank you for your service to our students. I'm going to invite our board and our student board rep, Mr. John, and yes, Principal O'Meara to the front for a photo opportunity.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you to the students for being here and sharing with us. Principal O'Meara as well. The next portion of our agenda is communications. We will begin with item A, which is our student representative comments.
Hello. So to start things off, winter sports has just concluded. Boys soccer won the Santa Lucia division with an undefeated league season. The team fell to Gonzales High in the PCAL play-in game for the final CCS automatic qualifier, but they did have an outstanding season. Girls basketball defeated Harbor High in the first round of the CCS playoffs before falling to Terra Nova High in the second round after a competitive game. Boys basketball beat Marina High 65-55 in the CCS Division 4 quarterfinals in the front of a large home crowd before falling to Sacred High Prep 62-52 in the CCS semifinals. Overall, congratulations to all of our Breaker student athletes and coaching staff representing Pacific Grove High School with pride and sportsmanship throughout the winter season. Job shadow and mock interviews were a huge success. Yesterday, March 4th, was the PGS Rotary and Job Shadow Day, where 10 students spent 3 hours shadowing local professionals in fields including accounting, law, real estate, and sports marketing, followed by a luncheon at Spanish Bay. Students were praised for their professionalism and engagement. Additionally, tomorrow, March 6th, and also March 7th, 17 parent volunteers supported senior Erwick students by conducting practice interviews and providing feedback to help prepare them for real-world opportunities. Next week is our Spring Sports Week, where there will be games and activities every day at lunch, including dress-up days celebrating our spring sports that include track, lacrosse, boys golf, boys tennis, swim, baseball, and softball. On that Friday of that same week, on March 13th, there will be a spring sports rally that celebrate those same spring sports. Sadie's is on March 20th, and the Pacific Grove Leadership class is very excited in throwing that together. Finally, students visit Spain for the PGHS exchange program over spring break. Moving on, for the community high school, several students have been able to accumulate enough credits for early graduation. We wish them well and look forward to their return for the community high school graduation ceremony on Wednesday, May 27th, 2026. The community high school garden continues to flourish. We are harvesting chard, kale, butter, lettuce, and we will begin planting flowers of multiple variety as we are transitioning into spring. And that concludes the student reports.
Thank you very much for your report. Item B on our agenda is board member comments and written communications. I'll go ahead and list out the written communications I've received. It's only been a week since our last board meeting, and then if other trustees have anything to add, please do. These are emails: parent support for responsible governance. I got 8 emails about a trustee comments at the February 26th meeting. I got an email about school librarian requirements, a couple additional signatories on the Please Don't Cut the PG School Library petition. We got an email from Chef Erickson about the success of the ProStart Holiday Bake Off competition in our PGHS culinary program, and an email about vaccine compliance. Are there any additional emails from trustees? Dr. Hazen.
I received one email regarding basically students remaining in the district.
Okay.
Temporarily long term.
I received a small handful of emails thanking me for board comments last meeting.
Trustee Wax.
I received an email about technology in our schools. And to that person, I'll respond tomorrow.
Thank you. I will go first with my board member comments and think with events going on locally and globally and a lot of uncertainty and stress, I'm working hard to find the joy spots. And so in this role, something that I got to do this morning was attend the first of the Employee of the Year recognitions at Forest Grove. And we got to be in front of, see the entire school, congratulate and celebrate the classified employee of the year and the certificated employee of the year. And I would just encourage trustees, and I know this is a hard ask because of how busy life is, but it's one of those things where we come in this room and work really hard, and the students are why we do it and the staff is why we do it. And so it was nice to just have that reminder and have that time to celebrate. I will move on to you, trustee Shamas, for board member comments, and we'll just head down the dais.
Okay. I received many emails regarding my comments from last week, and many were upset. So I really took the time to listen to my comments again to make sure that I was hearing maybe what they were hearing. So I'm sorry that my comments were taken as offensive to the classified staff. I in no way meant it that way. My point was in comparing job descriptions, not people. The proposal before us was to replace a certificated position with a classified position. And the reason given was that the librarian duties did not need a credential. Well, that is what I objected to. My position is that the duties of a school librarian do require a credential. When I listen to my comments, I just want to say that I do want to express some regret for using one word, detriment. And I was using that to describe how the rest of the district's libraries might have been affected in the past when they lost a credentialed librarian. I have no real evidence of that, and so I can understand how that felt dismissive of the classified working those positions currently. I do support all classified employees as important and necessary contributors to the education of our students. And if anyone needs more discussion about that, I welcome one-on-one talks, and I prefer that over emails because I really feel that the emails leave a lot out. I mean, it's very difficult to have a meaningful dialogue over emails. There's so much left out versus one-on-one. So I'm very open to talking to anyone who would like to discuss anything that I ever say. And I hope that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Trustee Hazen?
Just quickly will say it's been like, as you said, President McNair, it's been a tough week starting with last Thursday for sure. And I will say I'm glad that while we did have differing opinions on how things went at that meeting, I was happy that how we ended up addressing it as a board. So I will just leave my comments to that. So thanks to each of you for being part of those difficult decisions.
Thank you. Trustee Otmar? No comments this evening. All right. And no pressure. Trustee Wax?
Yes. Let's see. Let's see. My comment, I had some preamble stuff, but I'll just cut to this. I was listening to a podcast about AI today. Haven't finished it, but the person did mention that it's 1,000 days roughly since ChatGPT was released, and kind of in that time span, how much has changed both with the model and then kind of larger forces in terms of stock market, which affects, people at the top, and then the job market for new graduates is apparently down by 35% since early 2023. And junior roles and software development have seen employment fall by 16%. And then, of course, we're affected, like our purchase of Chromebooks because of the RAM spike, So obviously, I don't know what's going on or what's going to happen with all this, but I just do think that there should be I mean, there is real attention about this, but we really have to be aware of how monumental, I guess, this technology is, both for good and for not so good. So interesting times, always. And then also, I wanted to mention that in 2021, I ran for mayor. I did quite poorly. But one of the coolest things to come out of it was a skateboarder, a kid who I got to know because of the skate park discussions around that time. At the right before election day or something, he gave me a hand decorated skate deck with a Mike for Mayor design on it. It was a used deck. It was already trashed, but it was very much appreciated. And since that loss and that time, the skate deck has hung in my office because it was like a real self-congratulatory, like you gave one kid hope, I guess. And that was nice. But now another hand decorated piece of art hangs on the wall, and that's the colorful plea that we got from the student, from Robert H. Down, which was to save computers in Spanish. And so, they're both one to make me feel good, one to not make me feel good, because I voted to, really change things that interested this person, and then, of course, the effect on people's lives. And so, as Dr. Adamson mentioned to us, or forwarded us the quote of Theodore Roosevelt talking about the man or person in the arena, I just really feel grateful and for this position that I have right now at this time. And I also know that I'll speak for myself. I err all the time and make mistakes, but we are, I think, collectively just trying to strive to do the deeds. So even when people hate us or me, I hope you all know that our intent as a board is really for the good. And I appreciate that about this board. It's very nice to be in a community like this. And to the staff. The staff are amazing. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you for your comments. Item C on our agenda under communications is the superintendent report. Okay. Random side note, I have a neighbor and they have littles that go to Forest Grove. And so whenever I'm leaving for a board meeting, they're like, are you going to your Super Nintendo meeting? So I almost just slipped and said Super Nintendo Adamson. Superintendent Adamson.
We should rename ourselves our superintendent meeting. That's beautiful. I love it. Thanks for that. And thank you for that, Trustee Wax. I think I'm just going to make a comment there. I think, that quote, right? It speaks so much to what leadership is about. And really for you as our 5 trustees, you volunteer for this and you've stepped up, you've stepped into that ring and, you have remained committed and you lead with just such courage, through all of this, the hard and the good times. So, I appreciate you bringing that up again, Trustee Wax. I'm just so grateful for all of you. All right, well, I have 6 things I'd like to just point out and some highlights, for my report this evening. And I'm going to start with our Employee of the Year recognitions, because that has just been such a bright spot after, just a really, bless you, some very difficult weeks. And I truly am. I'm so excited that we are getting to announce our first Employee of the Year recipients. And we started it out at Forest Grove this morning. This is an inaugural program this year and just something that we're really very proud of. This first year of the program, we had 87 nominations, all submitted by colleagues, recognizing classified, certificated, confidential, and our management employees across the district, all for embodying our culture of we and putting into place our 3 core values of belonging, safety, and prosperity. So yes, this morning at Forest Grove, our classified employee of the year was our very own, and she's here this evening, Miss Christine Gruber, and I'm going to have to say it's her birthday as well. So what better birthday gift, right? So yes, congratulations. That was just a joy. And then alongside her certificated employee of the year at Forest Grove was Miss Mary Quindermull. So just what an honor, what a joy. And thank you to Principal Arbrun for bringing together the entire, as you mentioned, President McNeary, all of the students, all of the staff out on the blacktop for us to be able to recognize all of our cabinet members, our extended cabinet members there to truly just honor these incredible employees. So what a great way to start out. I'm so excited about, we have many more recognitions tomorrow morning. We will be here at the district office at 9 o'clock, followed directly at 10 o'clock at Pacific Grove High School to nominate theirs and community high school nominees. So looking forward to that. And then, of course, our remaining sites, our middle school, Robert Down, adult school, all of that will be taking place next week. So lots to look forward to. I can't share the other names. All I can do is what we have. But just know all of those our nominees will be brought forward at an upcoming board meeting for us to all celebrate together. I am excited to share that out of all of our classified employees, we got to also through the selection committee, which I just have to say that has been such a grassroots process. And, that has just been one of the pure joys and honors for me to be a part of, to hear all of our volunteers who volunteered for that selection committee to read through all of these nominations and select nominees for each of our schools. But then overall, our goal was to also select one classified employee who we would nominate for the county program. And I am excited to share that we got word this week that our nominee has been selected in one of the categories. So we will be announcing that next week at a time to be determined, because if I give that away, then, that's out as well. So I'm looking forward to sharing all of that, but we will have a special visit from the county office on a day to be determined next week, which it's not determined, it is determined. I'm just not sharing it right now. So again, I just cannot thank all of our employees enough for their excitement and risk coming forward. When reading all of these incredible things about our employees was just such a bright spot. So looking forward to celebrating all of you. All right, LCAP input sessions are underway and we are looking at meetings are currently taking place. Student advisory groups, our family and parent advisory committees are coming up, cultural proficiency and safety committees, all of that thanks to Dr. Hagwist, who's going to be leading this work as part of our input that he'll be sharing out as part of our LCAP process. So we're moving into our 3rd year of our current plan and just really looking forward to hearing from from our students, our staff, our families, and parents through this process, and looking forward to everything we will get to learn and gain, through that process. So please, all of you in the community, be looking out for those upcoming opportunities. We look forward to seeing you there. And thank you, Dr. Hagquist, for your work through that. It is a lot, but you would never know to see him on a daily basis, because that smile just carries him through it all, and the stress does not show, Dr. Hagquist. All right, Robert Down, they are seeking in need of someone to help and volunteer for crosswalk duty. So there's a volunteer opportunity, but there's also a position that's currently, running for someone who would like that as a paid position. But in the interim, we have plenty of volunteers, plenty of opportunities to serve. It is fun. I'm going to tell you that. Our district office staff have all been trying to fill in where they can. I've done a few of those openings, and I'm just going to say it's the highlight of my day. Principal Brownfield, I just love nothing more to be there, whether it's at the beginning of the day or the end, to see those smiling faces. So anyone who has a moment, a day, a slot, reach out to Principal Brownfield, and trust me, it'll make your day. It just will. So we're looking forward to filling that position. Adult School Highlights is my number 4. They have just put out their spring catalog for 2026. Lots of offerings. I'm always amazed at just the variety that's in there. So special thanks to Principal Martinez and Assistant Principal Arps for all you do. And also their Roots and Wings newsletter is out as well. So I love reading it. There's so many highlights in there. But really some of the data that's on that second page, Principal Martinez, that you're serving 2,220 students. You've had 3,541 enrollments so far this school year. 225,418 hours of instruction, 261 class selections, and 1,105 of those students are all Pacific Grove residents. So incredible, just really amazing to see that data and the continued offerings and the continued interest that's there. So great, good job. Upcoming cultural and religious observances for the month of March. We have I want to just give a shout out to all of our school, our principals and our assistant principals, your leadership in ensuring and taking the time to allow for safe spaces of so many of our cultural and religious observances that are taking place in the next few weeks, including Ramadan, Lent, Passover, and Easter, all observed by our Muslim, Catholic, Jewish, and Christian families. We talk about safety, we talk about a sense of belonging, a culture of we, and you're carving out that space and time for all of our students to make sure they are known, that they are seen, valued, and that they matter as well, right, especially during these times. So thank you for that. Also proud of just the many activities going on. As that reminder, March is also Women's History Month and Developmental Disability Awareness Month. So thank you all for recognizing those important groups and observances. And then finally, recognizing student achievements in the arts. We received good news from our Pacific Grove High School photography teacher, Mr. Weston. We have 25 Pacific Grove High School students will be having their work featured in this year's Seaside Youth Art Competition at the Avery Gallery in Seaside City Hall. The opening exhibition and awards ceremony takes place on March 20th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. Mr. Weston did note it's unfortunate, also coincides with the Sadie's dance that evening, but I'm sure we will get many people wanting to visit. I'm going to try and make it out there myself as well. And so just in closing, just thank you to our students, to our staff, to our families, parents, to our board for so many wonderful opportunities of just kindness initiative that we continue to see across our sites as we continue just coming together for so many wonderful opportunities that are reflective in the work we see happening every day. And with that, I'll return it over to you, President McNary.
Thank you, Superintendent Adamson. I'm going to take my time with that tonight. Assistant Superintendent Jorn, safety report.
Thank you, President McNary. I have nothing to report this evening.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 on our agenda is individuals desiring to address the board. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to action on that item. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are kindly asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable time for public comment on each agenda item not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to board policy. Just a reminder that this is a meeting of the Board of Education. It's a business meeting conducted in public, and the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. We have 2 public comment items on non-agenda items. We will first go out to community members wishing to address the board on non-agenda items. Okay. Feel free to approach the podium if you plan to make a comment. Thank you. And then the green light, he'll start the timer. You'll see the green light and it'll give you a yellow when you've got about 30 seconds left, and you have the floor in 3 minutes.
Okay, good evening, esteemed board, faculty, staff, public. I am here as a parent. My name is Masha Sertunch. I'm a parent, one of the tall guys who spoke with you this evening, and I'm here to talk to you about 2 things. Thing number 1 is I would like really to acknowledge the tremendous contribution of Model UN faculty facilitator, Ms. Nickerson. I don't know if you guys are aware amount of time she invested into that club outside of the duty hours. Driving the kids in the middle of the night to and from conferences is not for the weak of spirit. So I'm super grateful for you guys and for the school administration. Our principal Amira is here for creating this opportunity for the students to step outside of tiny Pacific Grove and to try to experience the world. The first time last year, it was a tiny, tiny club, and they were super, super scared. And this year, the first conference, there was so much. They spent nights and weekends together trying to get their statements, trying to do the research, put in all this time, and it was so scary. And they came back with huge grins. They FaceTimed us from the conference. Oh my God, we had so much time. We want to do more, more, more. Well, we all know with more, more, more comes more, more money. So I'm wondering if there are ways to keep that program going. I know they try to keep it very low cost. They do a lot of fundraising, but the impact of that program on the kids, even just thinking that they're thinking ahead, they're trying to think how we can make this program work. When we graduate, what's going to happen? We want to bring up somebody who will step into our shoes. They're at the age of 16, 17, already trying to plan ahead, which is, for me, is huge. So thank you for that. And please let us know how we can support you to keep this program going. Another thing, kind of in the framework of that program, March 26, 28, Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies in Middlebury will have its Critical Issues Forum Conference, which is a conference for high school students on non-proliferation issues. I know PG was a guest at that conference when I was one of the facilitators of that conference when I was working at Catalina. I really, really encourage you guys to find a way to engage your students and your wonderful facilitator in that. I will help any way I can, because the, again, impact of that conference, the students who attended that conference with me went to Japan, went to UN headquarters, CTBTO in Vienna. They now work in DC in policy. They're lawyers. It was life-changing experience that don't cost you much at all. So please consider that. I would love to provide you with more information if you're interested. And again, thank you so much for y'all for giving opportunities for the Model UN kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Any other community members wishing to address the board on non-agenda items? Okay, seeing no hands online and no movement in the room, I'll move on to item B, PGUSD staff comments on non-agenda items. And if you're in the room and planning to make a comment, please approach the podium or raise your hand online. Okay, seeing no comments, we will move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is consent. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and or may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There is no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items be discussed and or removed from the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the board shall be deemed to have considered in full and adopted as recommended. This evening, we have a very short consent agenda consisting of items A through C. I will first go out and see if there's any public comment on items on the consent agenda. Okay, thank you, Director Algazi. We will go to the board for any discussion on consent, and if we do wish to discuss, to pool. Anybody? Okay. I have nothing as well. If there is no further discussion, I will look for a motion from the board.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Motion made by Trustee Hazen.
Second.
And a second from Trustee Wax. Thank you. We will always first go to our student trustee vote. Student trustee, are you in favor of this item? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Trustees, with a motion and a second, all of those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any noes? Okay, thank you. The motion carries. Action discussion agenda this evening. Item A is the 2026 CSBA Delegate Assembly Election for Region 9B ballot. That's on page 21 in our board packet. And Dr. Adamson is presenting on this item.
Well, thank you, President McNary. And really, there's only one candidate for your consideration. So I'm just going to, really ask for the board's consideration. We really just need to get your official vote if we are in agreement. And that is the candidate is Roger Snyder from Scotts Valley USD.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, no public comment. I will bring it back to the board for any board discussion. Not seeing anyone reaching. Trustee Wax, no?
No.
All right, not seeing anyone reaching for their microphone, and that's just fine. If there is no further discussion, the recommendation is that we're going to have to vote Roger Snyder as our 2026 CSBA Delegate Assembly nominee. I will make that motion if that was clear.
Second.
Okay, motion made by myself and seconded by Trustee Wax. We will first go to our student vote.
Aye.
Thank you. Board motion and a second. All of those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any noes? Okay, thank you all. Motion carries 5-0. Item B on our 2025-20 or item B on our agenda is the 2025-26 second interim report. Assistant Superintendent Jorn, this is your item.
Thank you, President McNary. All right, good evening, board and community. Before I move forward tonight, I do want to take a pause to recognize the extraordinary work behind this effort and this report tonight. Second interim is far more than a document. It's a comprehensive financial snapshot that reflects months of careful reconciliation, analysis, verification, and collaboration across our sites, our business office, district office, staff alike. It requires aligning payroll and benefit projections, reconciling accounts and receivables, reviewing and reconciling position control, updating revenue assumptions, recalculating multi-year projections, and ensuring compliance with all state reporting. The work demands accuracy, judgment, and a deep understanding of how each moving part affects our overall fiscal stability. I could never do this work alone. And so before I begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the team responsible for making this happen tonight. Carly Adams is our fiscal officer. I'd like to thank her for leading the technical preparation, coordinating projections, and financial analysis that ground this report. Angela Lippert for her diligent work on position control, rolling forward all of our positions and staffing alignment as it aligns with budget, ensuring that what is authorized, hired, and paid remains consistent and fiscally sound. Kristen and Christina in payroll for ensuring every staffing adjustment, benefit calculation, and labor projection is accurate and aligned with our position control and compliant with STRS and PERS reporting. Megan Frusetta, who's in our accounts payable department, for maintaining clean, reconciled expenditure data that makes reliable forecasting possible for our district. And finally, Carrie O'Sullivan in the business office for site level coordination, documentation, and her behind the scenes work in organizing this entire process with me for presentation tonight. Their daily work is grounded in supporting our school sites and ultimately serving students, teachers, and staff at PGUSD. By safeguarding the integrity of our unrestricted general fund, they ensure the resources remain focused on classrooms and student needs in alignment with our local control accountability plan. California Ed Code requires, and here's the calendar, that the district follow a formally adopted California Department of Education calendar for the fiscal year. You can see there's 6 touch points here throughout the fiscal year where updates are given to the board. There's other touch points throughout the year associated with our LCAP process as well. So woven together, there's quite a comprehensive look at our district budget and how it aligns with LCAP. Just a quick walk through the budget cycle. You'll see budget adoption starts in June. In fact, it starts now. We're in the process of budget development right now, working with our school sites to prepare a 26-27 budget for adoption by the board in June. Next, we have the budget revision 1 that's done every year in October. And we bring that forward specifically because this is not a requirement, to be clear, but when because we're a basic aid district, we're always having to update revenues. It's important that we build a budget based on actual data. And when we bring the budget forward for revision in October, we have all of our carryover balances approved by the County Office of Education. We have all of our revenue updated from the prior year actuals, as well as expenditure reconciliation at that point in time. So when the board adopts the budget in October, that becomes the new board adopted budget. We then move into first interim reporting, which is all financial revenue and expense from July 1 through October 31st, which is presented in December. Second interim I'm presenting tonight, which is all expenditures and revenue from July 1st through January 31st. Excuse me. And then we roll right back into the budget adoption process. And I did neglect to mention unaudited actuals, which is in September. We'll be bringing that forward for the 25-26 fiscal year in September of 2026. So tonight I'm seeking board approval on second interim report. This covers all expenditures, as I mentioned on the previous slide, through January 1st of 2026. This report shows that PGUSD can meet its financial obligations this year and 2 subsequent fiscal years. And the report provides a positive certification to the County Office of Education upon approval by the board. Here's a slide that shows our overall general fund overview for 25-26. Combined restricted and unrestricted funds, which include total revenues of $49.1 million. That's up around $140,000 on the restricted side and $250,000 on the unrestricted side over the adopted budget. Total expenditures totaling just under $51 million, which includes interfund transfers, and this is down on the unrestricted side by around $69,000 and up on the restricted side around $26,000. This results in a gross operating deficit for this year of around $1.6 million. Reserve balance is 8.5 projected, which is up from 8.1, which was projected at first interim. Some context around the fund balance combined for the adopted budget. We began the year with $7.2 million combined, unrestricted $4.9 million, restricted $2.3, which gives us our $7.2 million beginning of the year. At second interim, we are now projecting an ending fund balance of $5.6 million, which is after the deficit that we're projecting, noted there on that slide. Here's how our revenue sources break down. We call them LCFF revenue, local control funding formula revenue sources. Of course, as we've been discussing for quite some time now, as a basic aid district, over 87% are tied to local property taxes. So that does dominate the LCFF sources structure to the tune of around $41.7 million. I will note, as I mentioned on the property tax update in January, we are still in a little bit of a lag right now on property taxes. We're running around 3.875% over the prior fiscal year. We've budgeted 5% over the prior fiscal year. I wouldn't suggest that that's anything to worry about at this point. Oftentimes at this point in the year, we don't see the lag that we're seeing this year. But we do anticipate seeing higher than normal tax receipts in February when they post, as well as higher than normal tax receipts in April. State sources, $3.9 million. You can see that as the second line item. That includes programs such as our ELOT program, arts music program funding, and other categorical grants. The carryover balances carrying forward from budget year 24-25 were posted at our adopted budget. And the ones that we're carrying in the 25-26 year, some of them will be expiring, and I've explained that through multiple different budget presentations over the course of the last 2 months. To highlight a few, our Music Arts Discretionary Block Grant, I refer to that as Resource 6762, and our Learning Recovery Emergency Block Grant, both are expiring June 30th. Federal sources, $690,000 includes Title I, Title II, Special Education, CTE Incentive Grant, and other resources. This is in a significant decline as projected over 23-24. So over the past couple of years, we've seen a substantial decline on the federal side. It is somewhat leveling at this point, but that certainly is an unknown as we move into the 26-27 fiscal year as to how the federal government will fund some of these resources for us. Local sources down at the bottom, you'll see just under $2.8 million. This consists of our SELPA funding, interest and tuition. Some of the increases here are solely tied to restricted revenue received. One of them was a minor increase to our SELPA and special education receivables. And then we had an unexpected and very gracious donation to PG High School for $100,000 from the Ballast Trust. So again, a lot of the increase there, in fact, all of it is attributed to restricted resource revenue. This slide shows the board approved salary increases for all employees were built into the 25-26 fiscal year at adopted budget. So, and the adopted budget revision 1. So the changes we're seeing now at first interim are primarily due to position reconciliation. Certificated salaries decreased by 45,000, classified salaries decreased by 165,000, and benefits decreased by around 42,000. Our STRS and our CalPERS contributions have remained flat. STRS is at 19.10%. CalPERS is at 26.81%. And we did just find out through the dartboard that in 26-27, we're seeing another reduction to CalPERS. CalPERS was intended to continue to climb. It's a very minor reduction, fractional percentage reduction, but it's nice to see that that's leveling to flat. I'm calling it flat at this point. State unemployment insurance remains at 0.5%. Workman's comp rate did increase this year to 3.24% over the prior fiscal year, up from 2.77%. And it's a notable increase. And one more point to mention is later this month, we'll be meeting with MIRMA, our Joint Powers Authority, and we'll get our new workman's comp rates, which I am anticipating and projecting will go up from 3.24%. I don't have those totals yet, but it's planned to go up. The reserves, as I mentioned on the prior slide, did improve from 8.1% to 8.5% over first interim. The improvements came from these main sources: receipts on delayed and delinquent tax receipts, receipt of new or understated restricted revenues, which I mentioned on the local side, a reduced Fund 01 contribution to special education. And that's just something that we work throughout the year. It's tied to reconciliation of program and budget. So throughout the entire fiscal year, the sites, the business office, human resources, our district as a whole is working to really reconcile any of the budgetary numbers with actuals and come up with reductions that we can make throughout the year. So that's being done. And one of them was tied to special education contribution. Diligent review of travel and conference reductions and unrestricted materials and supplies. Also, we're seeing some minor reductions there in the neighborhood around $22,000. But again, we're trying to, as we get through the fiscal year, bring those numbers down from budget to actual. Barely see the whole slide. Sorry. Okay, so this is our multi-year projection. I do want to make a note that when I'm presenting the multi-year projection tonight, this does not include any of the changes associated with the item that the board approved last week. So this is simply based on expenditures and revenue through January 31st of this fiscal year. So we're not seeing any substantive changes to the multi-year projections on this slide. This slide is a bar chart. Of course, it shows our 3 fiscal years. On the left-hand side, that's 25-26. In the middle, 26-27. And on the far right, 27-28. Let's see here, revenues in tan, that's on the left. The dark color there is our expenditures. And then the ending fund balance is the green on the third column, the small one. Key assumptions include 2% salary increase and 0.5% health and welfare increase for fiscal year 25-26 that we're in, as well as 26-27 is negotiated with our units. In 25-26, as reported this evening, revenue 49.1 million, expense 50.7 with a deficit of 1.6 million. There in the center, 26-27, you can see revenue grows to 50.3 million, but expenditures also grow to 51.5, leaving us with that imbalance there and creating a deficit of around 1.6 million in 26-27. The ending fund balance drops to around 4 million with a deficit of around 6.9%. In 27-28, again, revenue growing to 51.7 million. Expenditures are nearly in a place where they're matching expense. We have a smaller deficit, but it's still around 452,000 with an ending fund balance of 3.7 million and a projected reserve of 5.2%. Positives in the MYP are what is helping drive a better projected ending fund balance, which we talk about a lot, how important it is to maintain that ending fund balance. Our current year 25-26 reductions to expenditures during the second interim period and realizing unplanned revenues via donations are what are helping us with better projections in this fiscal year. Okay. That was the general fund. Now I'm going to cover all of our other special funds, which I'm required to report out on at second interim. Fund 01, our Student Activities Fund, ASB. Sorry, Fund 08, apologize. It is stable from first interim. We have a strong position with $11,500 surplus with a healthy ending fund balance of just over $441,000. Adult Education is Fund 11. You can see that on the right-hand side up top. Positive momentum here as well. Revenue up by around 13,000. Expenditures up only around 4,576. The deficit has improved by 8,764 with a very solid ending fund balance in Fund 11 of 1.3 million. Down on the bottom left-hand corner, Fund 12, our Child Development Fund. This fund has had a concerning trend over some time as the deficit continues to increase in this fund. Projected deficit this year of around 146,000. Revenue has been up, but expenditures are jumping as well. We have a very low ending fund balance projected in this fund of 31,825. I would note that around 4 years ago, this fund did receive a regular general fund contribution. And with the influx of some of the restricted programming that we've seen on the resource side associated with ELOP, we've been able to kind of stave that off for a while. But this year we do have a projected general fund contribution to this fund, and it did increase at second interim from 117,000 to around 172,000. And in all of my multi-year projections, we're showing a similar trend in the out years that Fund 12 is going to need a couple of things. Number one, either increased tuition, other revenue sources, or number two, increasing general fund contribution. And then Fund 13 down in the right-hand corner, Cafeteria Fund. Revenue's up around 24,560, but expenditures are also up. The expenditures increase reflects staffing alignment to program growth. Director Silveria has been growing this program. I've been reporting on this at every single interim and budget report. But as we grow the program, expenditures do rise. We have increased FTE, increased staffing, but we also have increased program offerings to our students. And with universal meals being the funding source, primary funding source for Fund 13, we do look at this as sustainable. Some other funds here. Fund 14, deferred maintenance. Revenue of 198,000 against $467,000 in expenditures does create a deficit, but we'll still maintain a healthy ending fund balance this year, projected at 754,000. Fund 20, this is our post-employment benefits. Not much to talk about here. We kind of skip through this one every single year, but we're showing an ending fund balance of 6,977. And why we skip over it is that this is a fund that was set up for OPEB benefits, other post-employment benefits, and we handle that liability outside of Fund 20. And unfortunately, you cannot transfer fund from Fund 20 to every other fund. So essentially, it's going to sit here for us until we need a post-employment benefits draw, and we'll pull from here first, and then we'll pull from other sources. Fund 21 is our building and ed tech fund. This houses Measure A, Measure D, and will house Measure B as we move into our first series fund release this year. This is our largest fund with 10.7 million in revenue, but 14.9 million in spending. The deficit of 4.1 million has increased by around 1.15 million since the first interim report. And this is predominantly due to the quick start projects, that big list of projects, 13.2 million that the board approved for summer projects here to spend down the final remaining allocation of Measure D funding. Despite the deficit, we do project an overall ending fund balance of 2.1 million. And we're moving now into Measure B, Series A, and we're exhausting Fund D, which is where we're at the time. So that's appropriate. Developer fees, Fund 25 is a new fund for us, but it's been growing. We've had some modest activity, 108,000 in revenue, and of course, no expenditures associated with this fund. And this has been discussed at the board level a number of times. We'll develop an expenditure plan for use of these developer fees when we start to move into the allowable expenses associated with modernization and new construction in our district. Fund 40, capital outlay projects, 290,000 in revenue against 464,000 in expense. It does create a deficit of around 174,000, but it does leave us with an ending fund balance, I'd say a healthy one of 553,000. And Fund 21's increased deficit is planned and tied to specific summer projects as well. This also helps support our Measure D Fund 21 project. So it's not a concern on the fiscal side and should not be a concern for the board or the community. All right. So the second interim report shows our financial position through January 31st. Staff is presenting a positive certification, meaning we can meet all of our obligations this fiscal year and 2 subsequent fiscal years. Just a quick summary, key highlights, positive certification. We do have a positive ending fund balance, positive cash flow through receipts, including a tax revenue anticipation note. Our district does participate in a TRAN pooling program and can cover all of its obligations through fiscal year 27-28, even with projected deficits. Our reserve projections of 8.5% are above the 3% minimum reserve. And this has increased by around 0.4% over first interim, from first to second interim. And as I did mention earlier, we have had less than anticipated tax receipts, but we do believe that that will be made up in our February through April tax receipts. Deficit spending is a highlight. Yes, unfortunately, it's something that we've been talking about for some time. We do have a combined general fund deficit of 1.6 million, and we're still projecting an ending fund balance of 5.6 million due to that deficit. So tonight we need board action to approve the second interim report so that we can certify to the County Office of Education that it has been reported out to this board and to this community prior to certification by the County Office of Education. Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation, Assistant Superintendent Jorn. Next, we go to public comment on this item. Anyone in the room or online, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, I will bring it back to the board for discussion. Trustee Wax, we'll go with you first.
Thanks for the presentation and for all the staff's help on it. I have 3, I think, pretty quick questions. With the lag in the tax receipts, why are you expecting everything will be kind of usual? I mean, because you said it was more than usual lag. So can you explain?
Sure. Yeah, so we receive, so there's 2 ways that I project the property tax receipts, one of which is the county tax assessor's office gives us a 5% over prior year certified assessment of property tax increase. The second step is I actually look at every single parcel in our district on my own, and I do my own assessment to see if that parcel tied to its assessed valuation aligns with the revenue generation totals that we're projecting. Both of those are in a line, so that's why I'm confident that we will see the revenue increase to 5% year over in lieu of the 3.875% at this point in time. A lot of it has to do with lag, right? Not everyone pays their taxes by December. Some folks pay them all in April. Some folks, some of the times it trickles in. And if I were to look at a 10-year trend, we've been hitting that year over percentage mark. And we've kind of been, the last few years, it's been pretty steady, but we're kind of all over the map when those property tax revenues come in. So for example, 3 or 4 years in a row, no property taxes in January, a small amount in February, March and April, a big ramp up. Last year, we saw property taxes in January, February, March, and then a big ramp up in April. So we feel confident with the fact that we did our own due diligence on the assessment as well as the counties. So we're kind of double checking our work.
Okay. And then the developer fund balance in the packet, I guess I'm just kind of confused. It says the ending fund balance is 59,470, but we haven't used it. So what's that?
It's a typo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a typo. So beginning balance 251,470, surplus of 108,000. So the ending fund balance is going to be around 359,000.
Okay.
It's a typo. So we're missing a 3 in front of the 59,470.
And then for the food stuff, the revenue is solely off the universal meals program? Or like, how do we get revenue off?
Yeah, well, so, universal meals is the primary source of funding for there's There are grants associated with the program as well, predominantly tied to infrastructure and so forth. But yeah, so the price per meal and the looking for the right word. All of the provisions purchased through the program is all funded through Universal Meals, and they're doing a really good job at the keeping those numbers, the cost underneath the revenue. So in the past, we'd been seeing a surplus. Now we're starting to see a deficit, but we're seeing that deficit because we're aligning staffing, basically increasing our expense to the revenue.
Okay, that's it.
Dr. Hazen?
Nope. Trustee Wax asked my question. so
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Shamas.
Back to the cafeteria fund. You mentioned that you considered it sustainable. But you need to review that every year as far as using that word sustainable.
I do. So I look at it as sustainable for this current year and the 2 subsequent fiscal years, which I report in my multi-year projection. I mean, there could be potential volatility associated with the governor's budget proposal, right? And that's something I would bring forward in January, February, related to the funding mechanisms for universal meals. As you may all recall, it was a federally funded program. And then when the feds cut it, the state kind of picked it up and they kind of beefed it up, so to speak, to use the term beef. So yes, we look at it every single year, but more importantly, it's a 3-year package. The way that I look at sustainability associated with revenue.
Okay. Also, when you say that we're able to put in a positive certification for this year, next 2 years, how do you figure when we've made these cuts? Is that what are you reporting that? You can't report that yet. So how does it translate into the next 2 years? Because your previous projections are the lowering of our reserve was going to continue. So
yeah, it's a great question. So unfortunately, it's a low bar that the state set associated with positive certification. Positive certification ultimately means that the district can meet its financial obligations and remain just above a 3% reserve. So that's simply what they're asking for. And that's when I say positive certification, it just means simply that we will meet our financial obligations this year and 2 subsequent, maintaining a 3% reserve.
But the county will keep sending us notices that we're deficit spending.
Absolutely. Every interim report and budget adoption where we submit and the board approves a deficit, that reduces the yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Trustee Otmar?
I have a question about Fund 12, about child development. So as we're looking at that fund and we're seeing that expenditures are above revenue, and that we'll have to transfer funds from Fund 1 to cover that. What does that look like as far as the future of Fund 12 and how long do we expect this to happen? I understand increasing tuition, but that might not be feasible for families. So I'm just sort of wondering what that looks like.
Yeah, so great question. It's something that we're discussing internally quite a bit, and this is a good time to discuss it with the board. Historically, Fund 12 was supported by the general fund. Our Monarch Club before and after school recreational program is heavily attended. I'd say that what we've seen is maybe we've seen attendance go up and not the price of tuition go down, but the level of participation associated with tuition go down, meaning free and reduced meal applicant families, because of the ELOP program, direct serve families, it's free, right? So, increased population, decreased revenue. We mitigated that for the last few years with our early learning opportunity program revenue, which I would not say is sustainable, right? It is a restricted resource. It's not one time. It's approved through the governor's budget. We do have it built into revenue for this year and 2 subsequent. But we are going to absolutely need to look at that program as a whole. We've looked at tuition. Last year, we did have an increase to tuition, nominal increase to tuition. The coordinator for that program and myself actually already did the assessment on a revenue neutral solution. We're not bringing that forward for approval or review at this point in time because of the impact possibly to families, right? If you increase the overall tuition by the hour, by the half hour, it could reduce participation, right? There's a lot of things that could happen from that. So right now we are kind of sticking within the historical data of that. The general fund did support 4 years ago and prior around $150,000 to $200,000 of this fund, and we're kind of like itching, like slowly getting back to that at this point. So, but certainly we're going to have to come up with another solution, because if this is ballooning to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 to support Fund 12, that's a problem we're going to have to address. I don't know if I answered your question, Trustee
No,
Otmar,
it
but
sounds like it just is a kind of work in progress, and it's something that we don't have a solution for yet, but I mean, it's something that at least it's being looked at now. So thank you for that. I think this question was already answered, because this only goes through January. I was looking at page 141. And obviously the decision that was made at the last board meeting for reduction in force, 141 is discussing full-time equivalent, so FTEs. And I noticed that there was not a change between 2025 current year and then first subsequent and second subsequent, that those remain the same. So that those RIFs will not be reported out until next time.
yeah,
So
so
next
that,
report.
yeah, you'll see in the criterion standards that you're referencing, we'll see that at the budget adoption for 26, 27.
Okay, so okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's all I have.
Thank you. Trustee Wax, go ahead.
All right, just to follow up about Fund 12. So I hear you saying that the general fund contributed more. Was it revenue or like, was it in the black, or was it, and if not, like how much historically are we holding to that deficit spending, I guess, in that fund?
Yeah, so Fund 12 was set up to be more or less a revenue neutral fund, right? Like tuition and expense. As I mentioned before, we've received the ELOP funding, which has help increase the revenue to help offset the increase in expense. But because the revenue is starting to trail and our expenditures are still going up, meaning more students, more services, we're seeing that gap, and we're back in a position right now this year where we projected $117,000 general fund contribution, and now it's being projected around 170,000 or 165. What I meant, and I don't know if I answered your question, I'm sorry, Trustee Wax, but we're kind of getting back to a place in time 4 years ago and prior where there was more of a general fund contribution of the $150,000 to $200,000 range for the program to be sustainable.
Board, anything further as far as discussion? I had a question about local funding sources. You mentioned donations. I see the note of the PG High School Ballast Trust. Were there other significant donations or just?
Yeah, that was a large donation,
Okay.
and I wanted to highlight it.
Okay.
We do receive donations, but they're
Yeah.
nominal.
Yeah, we see them in the board reports.
That was the big fluctuation for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's restricted and it's tied to the high school for a purpose.
That's important. I appreciate what you brought up about Fund 12, Trustee Otmar, because I was thinking along the same lines of I have concerns about raising tuition for families when it comes to BASRP and after school care. So I'd love to see what proposals or what's maybe in the works as far as a revenue neutral model, if that's possible. I think it's really important for families to be able to provide that at a cost that people can continue to get to work and feel safe that their kids are well cared for. Those are my comments. The recommendation from staff is to approve the second interim report. Is there anything further from the board? If not, I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the second interim report.
Okay, thank you. Motion is made by trustee Hazen
Second.
and a second from trustee Shamas. Thank you. We will go then to our student trustee vote.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All those in the board in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any noes? Okay, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Jorn and your fiscal team. Item C is our proposed board meeting calendar. This is Dr. Adamson.
It is, and there really are no changes that I'm proposing for any of the months. So I don't know if there's even a need to take a vote. Any discussion or questions on that?
Thank you. As we always do, I'll go to public comment on the proposed board meeting calendar. No public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for any discussion. Sounds like no changes. Trustee Wax.
Just because on the March 19th one, it seems like a fair amount of checklist items. Are those all required on that date?
Let me just pull up the list. Hold on one second. No, he's on. Thank you. Well, actually, there are two of those items that we're looking at probably moving a little later, the communications and the safety audit, to kind of have them coincide. And so really at this point, what we're looking at for March 19, none of them are required, to answer your question, Trustee Wax. I mean, the curriculum and textbook adoption mapping and planning, that'll be something that Dr. Hagquist brings forward. The report on the governor's budget proposal, I mean, it's just typically that's the time that it happens. It's not required that you report it out at that exact date, right, Assistant Sup John? And then, yeah, I mean, so really there's, my goals, mid-year check-in, that'll be in closed session. Well,
yeah, actually, it wasn't even that
meeting or what?
It wasn't even that long or that many items, but I just like shorter meetings. So I was wondering,
Got it. Yeah. It's going to be a short one because, as I said, with some of those off the list, right? I mean, really what we're looking at is, the governors.
There it may be a potential that I pull a governor's budget proposal because we're getting close to May revision, and I normally report on the May revision. So I might report his proposal, which has not been looked at by the legislature, and then we're going to have a May revision a month later. So there's a potential that item might be pulled.
I think we'll definitely need some consent items, for trips and that sort of thing. But what I'm anticipating is a very short meeting on March 19th, unless something else comes up.
And adequate or like plenty of time in closed session to do superintendent goals. So. Okay. Any other comments from the board? Not seeing anyone reach for their microphone. Thank you, Dr. Adamson. And with no action to take, we can move on to information discussion. Item A is PGUSD 5-year fiscal stability plan and timeline. Superintendent Adamson.
All right, wonderful. Thank you. So this is an information item we are bringing forward. As you will recall, this has come up in discussion at some of our previous meetings, and we are looking at the development of and sort of really putting together a roadmap that shows over the next 5 years some of the ideas that have been brought forward by the board yourselves through discussion on ways that we can really look at more sustainable and increase revenue that's coming in. So what we've done is just put together two basic slides. They're really just visuals, and I'm going to go ahead and go through just this first one that identifies some of the 5 pillars for our 5-year fiscal stability plan. Conversations that have come forward have really been that topic of developing a reserve policy that really puts language into place for the board as part of our policy committee. As part of our policy committee to identify a minimum of a 10% reserve as a goal for the board and the district to maintain. The second would be just ideas for, additional revenue generation, and some of those ideas that have come up is looking at passing a potential parcel tax. The second is exploration of creating a PGUSD education foundation. And then the third is just, continued pursuit of grants and sponsorship opportunities. And that's really something we see as ongoing as we look at the 5-year plan. The third pillar would really fall under funding governance, and really there's been discussion from the board at identifying norms for how one-time funds are used. So that would really be a future discussion as well. Number 4 is operational efficiency, and here we're looking at just the topic of what has come up in conversation is the idea of district reconfiguration for our 2 elementary schools specifically, really looking at that as if that could be a potential for improving, not only operational efficiency, but also, resource allocation. And then the 5th pillar is looking at redrawing of district boundaries and really just understanding, I think what the board has requested is to bring forward what that would entail, understanding the process and considerations that we would need to consider to really explore that as an option. So those are the 5 pillars. I think what really the meat of the conversation that we're going to be asking each of you this evening to discuss is really the timeline. And so that next slide really is what we have kind of identified as a proposal right now. This is really something, we're going to be seeking direction from the board this evening. But if we're looking at the next, upcoming months, we obviously can't do everything at once. So the idea of this is to really sort of map out a roadmap, so to speak, of, steps we're going to take to start exploring some of these. But definitely in our, most recent conversations, there has been, interest from the board to look at very seriously, what it would entail to pass a parcel tax. And because of the nature of the amount of time that's going to take, I know this is something that, the board the district as a whole has looked at in previous years. And from my understanding, we've passed one. A second one that we brought forward, did not pass. But I think it's definitely, it behooves us to, gather more information and look into having a presentation for that. So I'm going to ask Mr. Jorn to just speak to a little of some of the steps he's taken already in reaching out to Dale Scott and, give us a little bit of an idea of what that's going to entail.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent Adamson. And as Superintendent Adamson mentioned, 2008, the district did pass a parcel tax, $38 or $35 per parcel. It went through 2011-12, and then the district attempted to bring that same parcel tax forward for an extension, and it did not pass. It didn't pass by around 1%. It was very close. I want to say it was 66.4%. You need 67.7% to pass a parcel tax. So it is something this district has done before. Parcel taxes often are passed in 5, 7, and 10-year chunks. It's not something that you do in perpetuity. It's really tough to pass a parcel tax in the first place. And it's certainly tough to pass a parcel tax if you're asking for it in perpetuity. I did meet with Dale Scott and Joe Crump from Dale Scott and Company, actually on an unrelated matter where we're talking about resolutions to do some refunding and selling Series A Measure B. And this came up, and Dale mentioned to me kind of the timeline associated with this. Number 1, as we always talk about when putting anything on a ballot, we want a gubernatorial race or a general election to bring it forward. We have a gubernatorial race coming up, so this would be something that we would need to consider quickly. When Dale and I spoke, we had talked about bringing an information item to the board if the board so desires in April to discuss with the board from Dale kind of what this entails, what the process is. There's a voter survey that has to be done. A lot of the same steps that we went through for our GEO bond have to be taken to go through a parcel tax assessment. But ultimately, the board would have to take action on a parcel tax in June, or we would not make it on the ballot for the gubernatorial race. If we bring it forward in April and there's more information required and we decide not to pursue this for the gubernatorial race, then it would be the next general election, which means that revenue, if parcel tax passed, would be kind of 2029. We'd see that. So.
So that's the parcel tax. I think what we'll do is go through each of them, and then we really want to open up, for discussion for the board and some direction. Looking at sort of March, April, I'm seeing the governance norms that we're wanting to develop could really be part of our governance sessions. And that's really, we were putting together language to establish norms for how we assign, one-time revenues, with the idea being that we're not assigning it to people. For May, June is really what we're looking at, on the timeline here for, two of those topics. One would be just gathering information for what that would entail for, sort of redistricting. And I think the specific request here is for us to look at Pebble Beach, land, and look at what that would entail if we would, is there a possibility and an option for us to include, more areas? Of course, as we know, that would definitely impact, two of our neighboring districts, Carmel and PGUSD. And so really the process for that would really be for someone from MCOE, from the County Office of Education, to come out and really just give us some information, on what that would entail. And I would definitely want to have those conversations with our, neighboring districts in advance. Again, I don't know what the appetite is going to be for that. I'm not very optimistic on that, but I think as the board has requested, I think we at least look at what that would entail and, have someone from the county come out and give us that information. And then the Education Foundation concept, that really, would be reaching out to, our legal counsel. Lou Lozano would be able to come out and really speak to us, about the steps that would be involved in maybe setting something up along those lines, and maybe give us some examples of, other districts and organizations that have developed that. Any additional notes on either of those two, Mr. Jorm?
No, you covered it perfect. We'll have an information item on this at some point if the board so desires, but related to setting up norms associated with one-time funds, just a friendly reminder, some of our restricted resources require us to spend those dollars on people. So, but again, it's the, building the norms around that, not policy associated with that. But yeah, that's all I had to add.
And then really the last one on that timeline, and looking around August, would be where, we could bring forward some information on the consideration of reconfiguration. And I really think the idea with that would be to just present to the board of what, consolidating the two schools, what that would look like from a fiscal component and your resource allocation component. So again, just informational in nature to, really get a sense of what that would look like down the line. And then, the reserve policy, same thing in August, is really identifying through our policy committee. We meet in August to start putting together policy with language that would guide that, that interest of the board. And then ongoing to the right, really, we would see that, ongoing over the 5 years, looking at continued grants and sponsorship opportunities. I thought it would be helpful for, Assistant Super John to just mention some of the grants that we currently are considering on that basis.
Sure. Yeah. So we're always pursuing grants, whether they're one-time single-year grants, ongoing grants. I just submitted for our second year in a row a grant to the Chapman Foundation to help support mental health expenditures within our district. We were a grant recipient last year. We followed up with a great year-end report for them, and then we submitted a new grant application, as well as CTIG, and then the Golden State, it's GSPP, that's my typo, Golden State Pathways grant. That's another grant that Dr. Haglis was instrumental in applying for, but Kim Schertz, who's overseeing the CT coordination at the high school, this is kind of her wheelhouse. But there's a lot of grant opportunities available to the district. Some of them are very limited in the funding. Some of them are very limited in how the restricted resources can be utilized. But this is something that we're doing literally every single day for the district, sourcing grants. We don't have a grant writer. We all kind of take on this responsibility. But I would suggest that more now than ever, we're really trying to kind of keep our finger on the pulse associated with what dollars might be available to a district like ours for future use.
So that's, again, the purpose of this evening is it's informational in nature. So we're really seeking, some ideas and input from you as the board on this timeline, because that's going to help us then finalize and put that into action for at least the first year of our 5-year plan. So with that, I'll return it over to you, President McNary.
Thank you both for the presentation and proposed timeline. We will, as always, go out to public comment. before we come back to the board for discussion? Okay, no members of the public wishing to comment. I'll bring it back to the board for discussion, and really this is just kind of opening it up for discussion and figuring out where we go as far as direction. We've got a proposal. We can, I guess, maybe start with that or go another direction. I'll go to you, Dr. Hazen, because you look ready.
Got a number of things. Thank you for putting this together so quickly. I know it's been busy again. This is really good to see some long-term planning, specifically on this goal. One of the things I was going to add, I think we've discussed, but I don't think I've said formally, is with that idea of the 10% reserve as a board goal, I would like us to put in that language, there's maybe a note to the policy committee, what is the percentage of reserve we would need to not require a tran? Because I would like that just to be in there, just to say like, here's like the role that would save us, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that we could use on other programming. I know we're not going to get there by next year, but thinking long-term planning. Number two, really, again, this is exactly the kind of presentation I would like on reconfiguration, which is what is the actual mechanisms involved with it. I do also want to, when we get to that, think about the alternatives that could go in place that would be either steps towards it, or that would be, other ways to recoup costs that obviously would not be as much cost, but they would be basically, I don't think it should be the only option out there if that's something we're considering. So that would be one for that item. The grants one it's amazing that, and I think part of the problem, and this is not a intentional thing, because if you're so busy writing grants, it's hard to provide the transparency on them, but having a tracker where it's just saying, like, I know we keep this in my job where I have, here are all the grants I've applied for. Here's the status of them. Here's how much money they'd be. And then when they come in, here's the money. I'm sure you guys have that right budget sheets already, but that's the kind of thing almost it could go in like the future agenda items, or like just an update, like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how it's going. It gives us that idea, because we know you're doing it, but it's not something we see on a day-to-day basis. So it's a really useful thing, I think, for the community and us on the board to see. And lastly, the one thing I would like to, definitely see added there is the idea of community forum, right? So when we're doing this process, maybe around the August timeframe, but I think both from the district, from district staff, from the district office, and then from the community, what are some other ideas that we can brainstorm on to say, this is a very exhaustive list. There's a lot here, but just, I think keeping those conversations alive is really important. So again, thank you for bringing it forward. This is exciting to see so quickly.
Your mic. Oh, your mic is on. That's the only reason I was looking to.
I was just going to ask Josh, when we went out for that parcel tax before, and you mentioned it was a 67% threshold. Has that changed at all or not? It's for the parcel tax.
It's a
still,
2/3, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Because the bonds dropped their threshold. Yes. Okay.
One quick follow-up on that. Is there any information we have for MCOE, which districts have passed parcel taxes recently, or the answer is, yeah, just when that comes up, just to get an idea for like how they passed, what was the selling point, what was the appetite, et cetera, just to, again, help us with that planning process. Thank you.
Okay.
Yatmar.
I just had a question also about the parcel tax. So I think you said that the last parcel tax, did you say it was $35 per parcel? You might not have this information, but what does that look like as far as revenue for the district? Because when I hear $35 per parcel, I'm kind of like, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but with as many residents that are here, it adds up quickly. And I suppose I could have just gotten a calculator like you're doing, but I mean, I just wonder, if a parcel tax is coming forward, I suppose it's a balance in how much that tax is to as far as what the appetite would be, if it's too high, then it's a no, but if it's too low, then is it really going to benefit the district? So I don't know if.
Yeah. Excellent question. And I mean, any revenue, I guess, benefits the district, right? But at
Yeah.
the very same time, it's that trade-off on, the impact to the homeowners, the taxpayers that are paying that tax. I did ask Dale that question. He'll certainly be ready to respond when we have an information on him, but I can tell you there's around 9,400 parcels in our district boundary area, give or take. Call it around 350,000 on a $35 parcel tax. That's the one that was passed in 2008. That's not necessarily what we would bring forward. What Dale suggested, and he'll update the board on, is that we go out to the voters with a survey to determine kind of what appetite they have for a parcel tax, right? I mean, $100 parcel tax per home is almost $1 million. So that makes a pretty big difference, right? And again, right, the question becomes, do the taxpayers have an appetite for $100 for 5, $100 for 3, or 35 for 10, right? That's kind of when we get into the survey side of it. But yeah.
Okay.
That was my first question. When I saw the $35, I was like, how many parcels do we have? At first, I mean, I do the analysis, but I thought it was in the $6,000 to $7,000 or 7,000 range, and it's like it's 9,400 parcels. So
Okay, yeah, you said 35 and I was like, he must have meant 350. I thought, but because it just sounds
$35,
a lot.
yeah.
I guess it was in the early 2000s, so it's different, but okay. Thank you, that's all.
Trustee Wax?
Yeah, on the parcel tax brainstorming, would we be able to see options like if it's just on short-term rentals, if it's on every house? Because I saw that other districts did parcel tax short-term rentals at a different rate, which I think for voters would be more appealing. So
If I could add on to that, also, I was wondering by value too, right? I don't know if you could do a parcel tax by value, like homes valued over 2 million would have a greater parcel tax than those under, for example. But yeah,
I will certainly ask the expert and make sure he includes that in the presentation. I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
okay. And then, redistricting, that's a hard word for me to say too, that would only be negotiated between the districts and not up for a vote?
I mean, well, that's what we need to find out, I'm Trustee Wax, but I mean, there would definitely, from what my understanding is, there'd have to at least be some interest, right, amongst the other districts to open up that consideration. But that's the whole point of our bringing someone in to talk about that process to, give us an idea of what it will entail.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you, Trustee Wax. I need more information before. I mean, I feel like that's where we're at with a lot of these is the parcel tax. There's a lot of great questions and we're going to need more information from Dale Scott, and same with redistricting and reconfiguration in the foundation. But I think as far as our governance practices and our norms, that's something that we as a board can get to work on. I do appreciate that we're taking on this type of long-term planning and really just starting to do the work to find sustainable revenue sources. As far as the direction that you will all need as a staff this evening, there is a proposal and a timeline presented by staff. I guess we could give direction to proceed as proposed, with some of these coming back as info items and just starting down the process. Do you need anything further as far as priorities? It sounds like info item on the parcel tax, same as redistricting. You've got what you need as far as reconfiguration when you're bringing that back.
Yeah, I think if the board's comfortable with the timeline that we've mapped out over the next few months, with when we'll be bringing these forward for the first, consideration in each of them, then that gives us what we need right now to start developing that and getting things set up.
Sorry, I have one more, or maybe 1.5 more additions. On the reconfiguration, sort of like the parcel tax appetite, can we find out how much would be saved before undergoing that process?
That'll be part of that.
All right.
On the reconfigurate, that'll be probably the first presentation. We'll kind of give you an idea of, what the fiscal, benefit of it looks like.
Okay. And then the other question escaped.
The other half a question.
Yeah, I'd like to save some heartburn on the reconfiguration. Anyway, we've just been down that road well, you don't know, Mike, but many times, it's not popular with parents. I mean, not to say we can't go down there again, but just, it's not a hopeful type of, pursuit, but, you know, you can talk about it and I think the main thing is it isn't a huge cost savings. You still, are maintaining two buildings to, staff. I mean, it's just a split of grades, that it's a more efficient, it was looked at as a more efficient model because you have, your lower grades on one campus, just more efficient for the teachers and staff to collaborate and that type of thing. But financially, and probably not a lot of difference in what we do now compared to that. And just also you guys might want to check out Ed Code on the changing of district boundaries, because I believe it's covered in there.
The half thought that I remembered per Dr. Hazen's community forum idea, if the parcel tax idea has to be done by June, I think the community forum, I mean, if we could sort of do something toward the end of the school year to, I guess, gauge appetite on that too, it'd be
Sure.
pretty good.
Well, Dale Scott will definitely talk us through that process, and that's the part where he actually, they do the surveys, right? They survey our entire community to get, develop how much of an appetite there is for that, and we can talk to him about if there's a community forum component of that we'd like to do as well, and we'll definitely consider that, and have him talk to us about it in the presentation too. Yeah.
So my question is about the survey, and wondering about what the cost is for us going out to the community. Because if we survey the community and the community says, no, thank you, and then, what's the cost of the district? I don't know if there's a rough estimate at this point, or what the estimate, or even to secure Dale Scott services. I'm assuming he's not doing this for free. So as we discuss all these ideas, the dollar signs are dropping, and, I understand we might have to spend money to save money, or to spend money to make money, you know what I mean? But just rough estimate of what might be out of pocket.
Yeah, so I mean, what I can compare it to, Trustee Otmar, is what we did for our geo bond for Measure B. That's the only thing I have to compare it to. Design, printing, flyers, and postage was around $10,000, right? To send out information, and then we had additional input sessions that the district hosted that Dale Scott wasn't involved in, right? So there's that component that's like ours, but like 10,000 to kind of put the survey out, I think would be a number that I could say and be confident in. But I'll make sure that when I meet with Dale again and he prepares the information item, if that's the direction of the board, I want to have him lay all of that out. Like, what are the soft costs associated with the pursuit of this? Because you're right, above and beyond that 10,000, I'm sure there's going to be some analysis done by Dale Scott.
The thing I'm thinking of too is the analysis that comes
Absolutely.
afterwards is time consuming and
Yep.
all of that. So the paper going out might not be a ton, but when someone's sitting down with the information and has to extrapolate that, then we end up with a bill. So, and then just my second thought is about redistricting. I could probably say that I don't know how another district would feel about us taking their students, but I also think about the students themselves being pulled out of their district, and how that might feel to a family. Or I'd like to find other ways if we can, and that's just one voice, and I can say that at the community forum because I understand that I'm sitting up here, but it's just a thought as a human being. I'm thinking that for kids, so just wanted to put that out there.
Two thoughts, because I think that is a really important point. I do think there'd probably be creative ways we could do it where we wouldn't be displacing active families, but it would be new people in the district potentially. But again, these are the kind of things I think is exactly why we need to discuss this, because that we do need to know if that's, I mean, again, if it even would be an option, which I think we're ways from. Just to follow up on Clerk Schmoss, your points on reconfiguration, and I agree. Again, I remember when I joined the board, it was discussed on one of the first days, one of the first meetings, and it's, yeah, right. It sounded horrible, right? I mean, this is not something we want to do. But when we're making decisions about pink slips, we need to have our idea of what revenue streams or what actually we could do as an alternative so that we're not just making those decisions kind of, it's not in a vacuum, but without all the information we have. So that's my goal of it, is to say, what would it actually get us? So we can have that information ready if we get into dire financial situations or we start seeing it ways that we might want to avoid doing that. We can consider that as an option on the table, knowing how unpopular it might be. There have been some proponents too, though, I will say, some both teachers and parents that have talked about it. So I think that's where the goal would be, the information gathering to see what it actually would look like. But I mean, I agree. None of these things would be handled, in my mind, we would not handle any of these lightly and just be like, oh, let's do it. You know, it's really needs to be.
Well, we've done that kind of research already, and I'm sure we can dig it up and I mean, the pros and cons and the cost savings, and I mean, we have done it. So we just don't want to spend time reinventing it, but
Sounds great.
But yeah, it's there to look at.
Okay. Sounds good. You have your direction. Thank you, board, for the thorough discussion. We will now move on to item B on our info discussion agenda, which is future agenda items. This one is yours, Dr. Adamson.
Yes, as you can see, we have the first one there with our 5-year fiscal stability plan. And then really just the updated, BP and AR for our mobile communications policy that will be coming forward at our next policy committee meeting, which is in April. And I've checked off number 2 just because we got confirmation, at our last meeting that will really be something that will come up as part of the master facility planning. So at this time, if there's anything else for future agenda items, we will consider that.
Thank you, Dr. Adamson. Before we go to the board, we'll go to public comment. Okay, seeing none. Board, any future agenda items? Trustee Wax, I saw your hand. Go ahead.
Weren't we asking for like a sort of timely figment, info thing?
Right, and we'll be bringing that, I think, what did we say, Mr. John, for April is what we're looking at, to bring that back the beginning of April. So absolutely, I will add that, so it's there on the list, but absolutely, we'll be bringing back more information for the board. We're looking at that first meeting in April, most likely.
Thank you for mentioning that. Any other future agenda items from the board? Okay. No additional direction aside from adding that, and I see you're doing that. Oh, I'm sorry. Clerk Schmoss.
Would you ask the student rep if she has a future agenda?
Yes, please. Student trustee, at the end of every board meeting, we talk about agenda item ideas that we would like to see or hear more information about, or something that we're interested in. And it could be anything from grades to cafeteria options to it always rains when I walk under this part of the campus, but just something that's going on for students or that's important to you or that you've noticed or that you think we as a board need to know about and should be hearing, because we're not on your campus, every day. And sorry to put you on the spot at the very last moment, but Clerk DeVos, and all,
yeah, if you don't have anything in mind right now, take it back to the rest of your reps and think about it, because I do believe that would help your participation and interest, and it's good to have a student bring forward the student ideas.
Well said.
Well, I hadn't really thought about anything right now, but last week we got a on-campus mental health dog that was there, and I really liked that. So that's all.
I think we can also make that a part of our, when we meet regularly with
Yeah.
all of you as our 4 student reps, and to ask that in preparation for if there's something on there, you know, we'll make that a part of our regular checking in time. Yep,
For
love
sure.
that.
Yeah, thank you for bringing it up. Okay, seeing nothing further on our agenda other than adjournment, we will now adjourn. Our next regular board meetings are scheduled for March 19, 2026, and then April 9, 2026. Thank you, everyone, for your time.